In the early 1990s, inside a shabby office on Long Island, New York, a man picked up his phone. Within 15 minutes, he extracted $50,000 from an ordinary housewife, then used that money to pay for his lunch and cocaine. His name was Jordan Belfort, and what he sold was worthless paper trash, less valuable than toilet tissue. Yet his method was so simple, so brilliantly crude, that even a kindergartner could grasp its mechanics. Thousands fell for it. Billions evaporated. And when it was all over, he turned his story into a book and a blockbuster film, making millions all over again. How was this possible? Why did people fall for it? And more disturbingly, why do we hate him yet simultaneously envy him? What follows is the story of Wall Street's most audacious and successful con artist, told as if you were explaining it to a 5-year-old. This is a story about money, desire, and the staggering foolishness of human nature. It's the most honest lesson you'll ever get about greed. Jordan Belfort was never ordinary, not even as a child. Around age 10, he sold lemon ice at the local beach, but he didn't just sell it, he engineered demand. He told friends, "Bring 3 people and I'll give you a free one," creating artificial buzz through word-of-mouth manipulation. The product itself was basically frozen water with minimal cost, yet he packaged it like premium dessert. The taste didn't matter. The product didn't matter. What mattered was the pitch, the atmosphere, the manufactured urgency. Young Jordan understood instinctively what most adults never learn. People don't buy products, they buy emotions. This little venture taught Jordan a defining lesson. He learned that persuasion trumps actual value, that people make decisions based on feeling rather than logic. Throughout his teenage years, he sold everything imaginable, solidifying one core belief: what you sell doesn't matter, how you sell it is everything. This philosophy would later become the blueprint for his billion-dollar fraud on Wall Street. Those lemon ice pops weren't just pocket money, they were rehearsals for future crimes. Jordan's family was middle class, and his parents hoped he'd become a doctor or lawyer. But Jordan was different. He craved explosive success, not stability. Instead of studying at a desk, he hit the streets, learning how to pry open people's wallets. To him, the world was one giant marketplace. Every person a potential customer. Every conversation a sales opportunity. Jordan wasn't yet a criminal during this period, but the DNA of a con artist was already being encoded deep into his mind. The seeds planted during those beach days would grow into one of Wall Street's most notorious frauds. During college, Jordan prepared for dental school with plans to become a dentist. But on the first day of class, a professor said something that changed everything. "If you want to be a dentist, I hope it's not for the money. Dentists don't get rich." That single sentence shattered Jordan's plans. He wanted money, explosive wealth, not a stable middle-class existence. So he dropped out and started selling meat and seafood door to door. All he needed was a truck, some freezer boxes, and his silver tongue. At first, business boomed. Jordan knocked on doors selling meat, and people opened their wallets to his confident pitch and high-pressure tactics. He made sales happen through sheer force of personality, convincing housewives and families to buy bulk orders. But as the operation grew, problems emerged. Refrigeration systems failed and meat spoiled. Deliveries got delayed and customer complaints piled up. Costs exploded while profits flatlined. Eventually, the business collapsed, burying Jordan in debt. But this failure delivered his most valuable lesson. I can't sell meat, but I can sell words. He realized the actual product was irrelevant. What mattered was the story, the illusion wrapped around it. This experience fundamentally redirected Jordan's life. He abandoned physical products entirely and decided to learn how to sell invisible things. That meant stocks. Stocks can't be touched, eaten, or used, yet people pour enormous sums into them. Why? Because stocks aren't products. They're promises, hopes, fantasies. Jordan understood this perfectly, so he headed to Wall Street. The meat truck had failed, but his talent as a con artist was just beginning to bloom. This failure wasn't an ending. It was the precise moment Jordan discovered his true calling. In 1987, Jordan Belfort finally set foot on Wall Street. He started as an apprentice broker at L.F. Rothschild and witnessed real money in motion for the first time. Towering buildings, expensive suits, millions of dollars changing hands with a single phone call. But most importantly, he learned about commission structures. Jordan had an epiphany. Brokers make money whether stocks go up or down, as long as trades happen. Customers could lose everything, but brokers always win. This was exactly the answer Jordan had been searching for. His glamorous start lasted only 6 months. On October 19, 1987, Black Monday struck, and the stock market plummeted 22% in a single day. Countless firms closed, and Jordan got fired. Most people would have despaired, but Jordan was different. He saw opportunity. In the wreckage of the collapsed market, in a corner nobody was watching, he discovered a gold mine. That gold mine was penny stocks, garbage shares trading under $1. The penny stock world operated completely differently. While major stocks carried 1 to 2% commissions, penny stocks offered a staggering 50%. What does that mean? Imagine explaining to a 5-year-old, "If I buy candy for your friend for $100, I keep $50 for myself." The moment Jordan saw this structure, he knew his future. He didn't need to make money for clients. He just needed to make them trade. The rest would follow automatically. This was the core architecture of Jordan Belfort's scam. And now he was ready to exploit this system to its absolute limits. The stage was set, the opportunity was clear, and Jordan had found his perfect hunting ground. Jordan's method for entering the penny stock market was shockingly simple. He selected worthless company stocks and packaged them as if they were the next Apple or Microsoft. The stocks he sold were mostly shells, companies with no substance. If they existed at all, they generated zero profit. But none of that mattered to Jordan. He wasn't selling products. He was selling fantasies, dreams, and fear. His weapon was singular, the telephone. His skill was language. Jordan's sales pitch worked like a magic spell, precisely engineered. This company is unknown now, but major institutional investors are about to jump in. If you don't buy now, the opportunity vanishes forever. You're standing at the center of history right now. He gave customers no time to think, no space to question, no room to doubt. Everything was urgent, desperate, requiring immediate decision. In 5-year-old terms, Jordan did this. This piece of paper is a real treasure map. But it disappears tomorrow. If you don't buy now, you'll regret it forever. And astonishingly, people bought. Doctors, lawyers, business people, housewives, retired seniors, thousands fell for Jordan's pitch. They weren't afraid of losing money. They were more terrified of missing the opportunity. Jordan exploited this psychology with surgical precision, extracting tens of thousands with a single call. Dozens of calls daily, hundreds monthly. That's how Jordan started raking in massive money. This was the beginning of Wall Street's most brazen, most simple, and most successful fraud in history. A con so obvious in retrospect, yet invisible to those caught in its spell. Working alone had limits. Jordan decided to industrialize his fraud. He founded a brokerage firm called Stratton Oakmont and began recruiting. But he didn't seek Wall Street elites. He deliberately targeted hungry, desperate people with no moral hesitation. College dropouts, ex-convicts, drug addicts, even those who barely finished high school. Jordan brought them in and taught them one thing: how to lie convincingly. Stratton Oakmont's office looked impressive from outside, big building, fancy signage, suited employees. But inside was completely different. The office wasn't a workplace, but a massive party venue. Employees snorted cocaine off desks while making calls. On Friday afternoons, strippers entered the office, and employees threw wads of cash while cheering. When fights broke out, security intervened. Occasionally, ambulances arrived to cart away employees who'd overdosed. Jordan called this wolf culture, creating an atmosphere where anything was acceptable as long as money flowed. This wasn't a brokerage. It was a criminal organization. The employees weren't brokers, they were con artists. But they made obscene money, so nobody left. Jordan's training method was systematized into straight-line persuasion. The core principle was simple. Never give customers space to say no. Completely dominate the conversation, so the only possible conclusion is, yes, I'll buy. Employees practiced this technique every morning. Jordan personally demonstrated, teaching by example. He'd grab a phone, call random numbers and within 5 minutes persuade the person on the other end. Employees erupted in applause. Jordan became a hero. Stratton Oakmont was no longer just a scam company. It was becoming an empire that elevated fraud to art. The machine was built, oiled, and running at full speed. After making millions from early penny stock scams, Jordan launched a bigger game: IPO fraud using pump and dump. This method was remarkably simple yet devastating in its power. Jordan and his team first secretly purchased massive quantities of a garbage company's pre-IPO stock. At this stage, prices were low, so they could accumulate enormous positions cheaply. Then the real game began. Hundreds of Stratton Oakmont employees simultaneously picked up phones and called investors nationwide. "This company will revolutionize everything. Major institutions are already moving. If you don't buy now, you'll regret it forever." Thousands of calls continued all day, and people started buying one by one. As demand increased, prices skyrocketed, multiplying several times within weeks. Investors cheered. Jordan smiled. But this was only the beginning. When prices peaked, Jordan gave the signal. Every Stratton Oakmont employee simultaneously dumped all their pre-purchased shares. The massive sell-off flooded the market, prices instantly collapsed, and late-arriving retail investors were left holding worthless paper, stunned and confused. The entire process completed within weeks, and Jordan pocketed tens of millions. For a 5-year-old, Jordan secretly bought tons of balloons, then told people, "These balloons are more precious than gold." When prices rose, he sold his balloons and ran away. Everyone else was left crying, holding deflated balloons. This scam repeated dozens of times, with different companies, different stocks, but always the same victims: ordinary people chasing dreams of wealth. As money overflowed, Jordan and Stratton Oakmont spiraled out of control. The office was no longer a workplace, but a gigantic party venue. Employees snorted cocaine off desks while making calls. Friday afternoons brought strippers into the office, and employees threw cash while cheering wildly. When fights erupted, security responded. Sometimes ambulances arrived to remove employees who'd overdosed. Jordan himself consumed Quaaludes multiple times daily and used cocaine during lunch to stay alert. Amid all this madness, money kept pouring in. The more outrageous the behavior, the more money seemed to flow. Jordan's personal life also began crumbling. He divorced his first wife and remarried Nadine, a former model. He bought a massive mansion, drove multiple supercars, and purchased a 170-foot yacht. But money couldn't fill his inner emptiness, and he grew increasingly dependent on drugs. One day, while high, Jordan drove with his daughter in the car and crashed. Another time, while sailing the Mediterranean on his yacht, he encountered a storm and nearly drowned. The Italian Navy rescued him, and newspapers ran the headline, "Wolf of Wall Street rescued at sea." But the real danger wasn't at sea, it was on land. The FBI had been watching Stratton Oakmont for years, and victim complaints were flooding in. Jordan knew this, but believed he'd never get caught. He hid money in Swiss banks, dispersed assets under friends' names. He paid lawyers massive fees to build legal protection. But history proves one truth: no matter how clever the con artist, eventually the net closes and the wolf falls into the trap. Jordan Belfort's empire was now racing toward its end. The wolves were circling, but this time they wore FBI badges. In 1996, the FBI finally moved. Dozens of agents raided Stratton Oakmont's offices, seized documents, and began arresting employees. Jordan's empire collapsed overnight, and some employees started cooperating with the FBI. They testified in detail about how Jordan manipulated stock prices, deceived investors, and laundered money. Jordan was cornered and eventually agreed to sell out 30 of his subordinates in exchange for reduced sentencing. The wolf survived by devouring his own pack. In 2003, Jordan Belfort was convicted of securities fraud and sentenced to 4 years. But he actually served only 22 months in a minimum security, comfortable prison. He played tennis in the morning, worked out at the gym in the afternoon, and spent evenings writing his story. An actor named Tommy Chong, whom he met in prison, told him, "Write this as a book. It'll be huge." Jordan followed that advice and after release published his memoir, The Wolf of Wall Street. The book became a bestseller, and in 2013, Martin Scorsese directed a film starring Leonardo DiCaprio. Jordan made massive money yet again. Today, Jordan Belfort travels the world giving speeches. He calls his past a mistake and claims to now teach ethical sales techniques. His speaking fee reaches tens of thousands per appearance, and people gladly pay it. Meanwhile, the thousands of victims he defrauded still haven't recovered their money. Jordan was ordered to pay $110 million in restitution, but he's repaid only a tiny fraction. The wolf was caught, but his teeth remain sharp, and he's still biting into people's wallets, just legally now. He turned his crimes into a brand, his prison time into credentials, and his victims into footnotes. Jordan Belfort said in an interview, "I was greedy, but I wasn't alone. Everyone was, and still is." This statement is cynical yet disturbingly accurate. We know Jordan is a criminal. We know he defrauded thousands. Yet at some point, we envied his life. Watching the movies yachts, champagne, supercars, and endless parties, we condemned him while simultaneously thinking, I want to live like that. This is Jordan's real victory. He stole money, destroyed people, went to prison, yet ultimately became a hero. People line up to hear his speeches, buy his books, and cheer watching his movie. Victims are forgotten while the con artist became a star. This ironic reality reveals an uncomfortable truth. We claim to want justice, but we actually want success, and how that success was achieved doesn't really matter. For a 5-year-old, even if you do bad things, if it looks cool, people applaud. This is the most bitter and most honest lesson the Wolf of Wall Street left us. Jordan Belfort's story proves one thing. In capitalism, the line between genius and criminal is thinner than we'd like to admit. But he's not alone. Wall Street is filled with similar stories, some even more outrageous, some still unfolding right now. Next time, we'll dive into another financial scandal that makes Jordan look like an amateur, a fraud so massive it nearly collapsed the global economy, where the criminals didn't go to prison but got bailouts instead. If this story shocked you, the next one will make you question everything you thought you knew about money and power. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it. Like this video if you want more stories that expose the uncomfortable truths behind wealth and greed. Because understanding how the game is rigged is the first step to not becoming the next victim. See you in the next one.